Rules, laws, shoulds, shouldn'ts, the Bible is full of them, and the church has added even more to that. So the religious leaders approached Jesus and asked, hey, JC, superstar, lots of rules here, lots of laws. What are the ones that matter the most? And he deconstructed all the law, all of those rules, all of the rules the church adds to it, and answered, love. Love God, love others, and those two are really the same thing. Everything else is wrapped up in that. So, what the heck happened? Today we talk about our relationship to rules and the law and how we actually have an all-access pass to life, to love, to freedom.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday, so I call you up and you call me down? Would it be okay?
Well, hello and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. My name is Robert Cottrell and I'm here as always with
Susan Cottrell.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm eating a cookie. You've made these amazing cookies that are this great mix of savory and sweet. And I just had one sitting in front of me, so sorry, everybody. Hang on. Those are really, really good. I'm
They're
free.
those Hildegard.
I have an all-access pass to your cookies. Wait a minute.
They're called Hildegard Cookies of Joy from St. Hildegard.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Well, cool.
Recipe on the internet.
Wow.
Delicious.
All right. Cool. Anyway, hi, everybody. Welcome into our world.
Yes.
Connect with us at freedhearts.org. By the way, you do some counseling, some life coaching that you do on a very limited basis because your time is very limited. If you're interested in that, it's not really an ongoing thing. It can be, but it's oftentimes a one-off or a two-off thing to work through an issue or get unstuck from something. Just email us at either hello@freedhearts.org or podcast@freedhearts.org, and we'll get you all the information. Mm-hmm. You're eating a cookie now too, aren't you?
I am.
These cookies are sitting right here in front of me. What we do here is deconstruct religious baggage with laughter and love and cookies. And we're going to continue that today. So, I mean, rules, laws, you should do this, shouldn't do that. The Bible is full of these. And to make it even more interesting, the church has added a whole bunch of new ones to it. But the religious leaders back in the day approached Jesus and said, yo, bud, that's what they called him back then. Not really. Hey, lots of rules here. Lots of laws. What are the ones that are most important? And you know what he did? He deconstructed it. He deconstructed all the law. He deconstructed all of those rules. He deconstructed and continues to deconstruct all the rules that the church adds to it. And he answered, love. Love God, love others. And oh, by the way, those two are really the same thing. Everything else, not most everything, everything else is wrapped up in that. That is some serious OG deconstructing right there. Wow. I mean, that is big time.
And he told them that, and they promptly ignored it.
Yeah, they walked away. They asked it as a trap, actually, but
right.
That's a whole nother story. But
the church asks today, what would Jesus do? And promptly ignores it. Yeah. What breaks God's heart? Break my heart for what breaks yours, and then promptly ignore it. Okay, so what the heck happened? That's our question. Today we want to talk about our relationship to rules or the law, and we mean biblical law, those rules and that religious leaders are so fond of holding us to in a rigorous, legalistic way. This is important because I think this is where so much of our angst comes from. And here's what I mean. Let's say you're driving, you're thinking about where you're going, what you're going to have for lunch, what you're going to do this evening, whatever, and just enjoying your day. And you see a speed limit sign and you adhere to it. It's sort of just a passing thing. That rule is there to help maintain order so people don't just crash into each other. And so you have access to whatever else your day holds. But let's say you're in a small town that all of its money basically that it makes is from tickets. And there are a lot of them. There's a whole thing about this. And you have to pay great attention that you do nothing wrong, like come to a complete stop before you turn, use your blinker, don't dare go even 1 mile over the speed limit. So what was designed to make driving easy to facilitate traffic so you could drive with minimal worry to give you access to other thoughts as you drive, those traffic rules were never meant to be an end in themselves so we can live our lives to become all about the rules. No, you'd never be at ease driving in a town that does that. And really, you'd like to get out as soon as you can. That's basically what the rules, proof texted out of the Bible, have become for our rules-based churches, our legalistic churches. They're all about the rules because they make all their money from the rules, so to speak. They gain compliance. They gain a guilt-stricken following that will do whatever they're told because they're terrified.
Yeah.
And they get money in the plate. They build their empire.
And that was never meant to be. Right. Okay, rules used in that way, pulled out of the Bible, which is proof texting, and turned into a weapon, is what Jesus ripped the religious leaders apart about.
Yes.
What using Scripture as a weapon, they used Scripture as a weapon to deny people access to God. The exact opposite of what their actual purpose is.
One of the favorite things we read from Jesus that we love to say always is that people were not made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for people. And this is an enormous thing to say. Mm-hmm. And we're here to unpack it, to show you how much it's offering. But first, let me explain what the Sabbath is.
The Sabbath kind of represents the law, too. It's like the biggest, like the Sabbath was a big deal.
It was a big deal, yeah. But
and it still is in certain
yes.
Yeah.
But it in part for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, okay,
in part for right reasons and also for wrong reasons.
Well, tell us.
So from the Jewish library, the Jewish virtual library, it says, the Shabbat, or the Sabbath, is one of the best known and least understood of all Jewish observances. People often think of it as a day filled with stifling restrictions or as a day of prayer. But those who observe Shabbat view it as a day of great joy, eagerly awaited throughout the week, a time when we can set aside all our weekday concerns and devote ourselves to higher pursuits. Okay, that's a huge difference. I mean, this is really powerful what this is saying here, that the Sabbath was meant to give us access to our higher selves, to God, to rest, to decompression. It was not meant to be a list of things we can't do. It's a gift to let people restore and rejuvenate themselves. And this site goes on to say, in modern America, we are so used to the 5-day work week, we don't realize what a radical concept was this day of rest in ancient times. The weekly day of rest has no parallel in any other ancient civilization. In ancient times, leisure was only for people with money and power, never for the ones who did the actual labor. The very idea of rest each week was unimaginable.
Wow.
And the Greeks thought Jews were lazy because they insisted on having a holiday every seventh day.
And Jesus is saying, this is a gift that was made for you. You were not made for it. It was made as a means to help restore you and replenish you, to give you a day of rest, not another burden to keep you more and more bound to the law. It's not handcuffs to bind you more tightly to the law.
I think that's a huge, huge concept. And to put it another way, biblical laws and civil laws are meant to give you access, not to restrict your access.
That's huge.
That's huge. Mm-hmm. Like the driving rules we mentioned, they're meant to give you access to parts of the city or country that you couldn't access if people just drove randomly. And you may say that in your city they do drive randomly. Okay, fine. But without traffic laws, it would be chaos. And when they're used, as we said, in our fictional small town, to gain money, they restrict access. They make you afraid to make a move. So there is a whole thing about this, and now it's being named, of predatory police practices, where towns make up their revenue from traffic tickets, millions of dollars from speed traps.
Yeah. There's one.
We talked about this.
Yeah, there's one it's in Doraville, Georgia. Hello out there. These officers write an average of 40 tickets a day, or about 2 per officer, most of them on a 2.7 mile stretch of Interstate 285 that lies in Doraville or on Buford Highway. But this is not isolated to Doraville. This is all over the place. There are traps. And like you said, you don't dare not come to a complete stop at a light or at a stop sign. You don't dare go even a mile over the speed limit because they're set up to be traps, absolute traps that rob your access from just being able to follow the rules so you have a safe driving experience.
Yeah.
Now, we can't just let people zoom through sleepy towns and unsafe speeds, of course, but that's not what this is. We're talking about predatory police practices that can generate the town's revenue. One article that I read talked about how this one town, tickets compromise 93% of the town's budget.
Wow.
And one councilman
ridiculous.
said, well, I don't know if it's protect and serve or to collect and serve. Exactly.
Yeah. And if you add in race, there's a whole nother level of predatory policing. Black Americans are stopped more often, ticketed more often, treated more aggressively. There was a USA Today headline that said, for Black Americans in traffic stops, we carry the burden of ensuring we are not murdered. That Black Americans in traffic stops carry the burden of ensuring they are not murdered. That's horrifying. And Black people are 95% more likely than whites to be stopped. Black people are 115% more likely than whites to be searched. But contraband was more likely to be found with white drivers when they are searched. So these practices come at a great cost to restrict some people in their fullness of life.
Right. You take something that was initially designed to kind of give you peace.
Yeah.
And you twist it in a way that restricts your access.
Yeah.
And this is just the same as religious leaders who extort people for their own gain. They don't tell people not to be gay for that person's sake.
Right.
Not really.
No.
Because they're not even hearing that person's story. They're just, quote, upholding their own point of view.
Yeah.
Or upholding God's law. Yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah.
False teaching. The point is, this is not how law was meant to be used. It's not how biblical law was meant to be used. The Bible was written by the outlier for the outlier to represent the outlier's point of view. That's critical to understand that. It's meant to grant access to those to whom it's been denied. And it's meant to restrict access from those who trample over other people. It's meant to empower the disempowered. If it's used to empower the powerful, it's being used wrong.
Yes, that's right. And the law turns bad very quickly. Remember what we said about the Sabbath, that the beauty of the Sabbath, that it was made for people, for peace and rest. And what did the religious leaders do to it? They made it into a dictator. You can't light your lantern so that you can see, because that's work. You can't spit because you might make a furrow in the ground, and that is work. Do you see how crazy it gets in a nanosecond? And it was the religious leaders who did this, not the people, the religious leaders. There's something weird when people get power, and there have been studies on this, that people get distorted and bent out of shape, that the more incentive that there is, like money and power, the more distorted they become. The Sabbath was meant to grant access And then religious leaders used it to deny access.
You know why I think that is in part the whole power thing?
Why?
Is because I think we have been taught to have contempt for ourselves.
Yeah.
We just hate ourselves.
Yeah.
We believe that down deep, if God really knew everything,
Right.
God doesn't like us very much either, or just tolerates us. So damn it, I'm pissed at that. I'm broken at that. So if I get a chance to wield some power, to seek some revenge, or take it out on someone, I'm going to do it. You know,
and we're by and large all hurt in our childhood. And wounded and in the culture. And so, instead of getting that healed, many people in power just wielded over other people.
And that's why this deconstruction, this understanding, the teaching of contempt and of all of this and how insidious and how deep that is, deconstructing that, as we said last week, unfreezing it, changing it, is just, it changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Yeah. So I have a fun and unexpected example about granting or denying access. And so cold plunging has become a thing. I know. Some people we know do cold plunging and invited us to do it. And we said, not on your life. Are we waking up in the cold Pacific Northwest and going to a lake and getting in for even a minute, much less 5 or 10 or 30 minutes? Are you kidding me? And then you come out freezing and you have to go spend the day warming up? No, not happening. So that in our assessment is cold plunging. And
needs to say we're not the sales representatives for the cold plunging industry.
Right. But that's how they do, these friends of ours do it. And I understand there are alleged benefits.
Well, yep.
I mean, okay. But really, that it reduces inflammation, it gets rid of free radicals and whatever else you can look up for yourself. But I'm interested in those benefits. I like those benefits. But plunging, as I knew it, was a non-starter. It denied me access, and I had no interest in trying it or accessing it. Then our daughter told me that she and her husband do cold plunging with a little galvanized tub out there on their back porch. And I said, good for you. And I asked her again, what are the benefits? And she told me about all that. The reduce inflammation, getting rid of free radicals, all that. As fun as free radicals might sound, they're really bad for us. So I was interested in those benefits, but I'm not doing it. And I did tell her that I had read that you can just, at the end of your shower, you can turn it on cold for a minute or so, and you'll get the good benefits from that. But I couldn't even do that. It was just, it's just too cold. And I would do it for like 1 second and then pop out. It's not happening. And she said, if you can get past the first 10 seconds of the cold, then it is not hard after that, or it's not horrible after that. So after 10 seconds, that's the hardest part. But if I could just stay in, it gets easier. And then if I could stay in for a minute, on a consistent basis, it would provide a lot of benefit. Well, now I was interested. I was like, okay. And I'm really actually moved by this story because what she was doing was looking for a way to grant me access. She wasn't telling me I need to do this. She was looking for a way to grant access for me so I could access this miracle thing and get what I wanted. And I did it. And it was not terrible. And I started just before Christmas, and I'm still doing it. So that is remarkable. Now, how did she grant me access? She said, she met me where I was, and she told me if I could just stay in 10 seconds, it will be easier and not, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And that is good to know. It's just, and it's not ice cold. I don't do it ice cold. I let the water heat first. So then it's just off of ice cold, because I'm not going to do ice cold. And when it's at its coldest, I know I'm going on here, but there's a point here. There's a point that So one of the days that I didn't bother to warm it up first, I just went in ice cold. I did not acclimate. I spent half the day afterward trying to get warm again. And she said, no, that's too cold. Just put it where it's really a challenge, but it's manageable. It's tolerable. And I did it. And anyway, so it's not terrible. And I actually look forward to it. And a minute to 3 minutes is all you need ever. And I can't tell you what a gift it was to be granted access to something that has benefit to me, the benefits that I want.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'm cold.
My legs are cold, actually, sitting here telling you.
I now do the same thing too. Only I do the same thing too in the shower. So,
and that, of course, that's just one example. We're not.
Yeah. Well, what we want to go back to here is let's look at, since Christian is someone who supposedly follows Christ. That's kind of the idea here, Jesus. Everything we read about Jesus is access granting.
That's remarkable.
From the woman forgiven for adultery to the woman who got into the home of the Pharisee over during dinner, and so many examples.
Yeah.
He grants access to the outlier, to the poor, to those who drink, to those in need, to tax collectors, to the prostitute.
Which, by the way, Mary Magdalene was not. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just that was put in there by actually men in the writing.
Yeah.
And rewriting and translating and interpreting because they thought it'd be helpful. Yeah.
Because they couldn't let Mary stand alone as a virtuous, as something amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the access deniers don't deserve your attention. Again, who benefits and who is hurt by? That's the question we should always ask. And why would they deny you access to this? It's so freeing because it's freeing, and they don't want you free because if you're free, you're not under their control.
Right.
Okay. That doesn't deserve your attention. You don't answer to them. They have used the Bible to deny you access, just like the religious leaders who flattened the Sabbath into rules like don't turn on the light and don't spit. And Jesus said they're dead wrong.
Dead wrong. And you don't answer to them. That's right. That Bible that's been used as a weapon, when it's used correctly in the light of love that Jesus showed us, grants us access. It doesn't deny it.
And I love all access. I have to admit, I am spoiled because, I used to wait in line to get into concerts and stuff. And now I don't even consider going to a concert unless I am going backstage to meet the artist and we got some VIP access.
Yeah, there was somewhere a turn where you
I don't know
developed that ability,
was, but
connections or whatever.
Yeah, all access is awesome.
Yeah.
And imagine having all access to everything your heart longs for.
Yes.
The purpose in life and the happiness and the joy and the freedom and the love of yourself and the love of others, having all access. You have all access to
and
this.
To your sexual identity and to your gender identity, your sexual orientation, romantic orientation.
Yeah.
All of that is accessible to you. God did not put it off limits.
Yeah. And you may have at one point had a real love for God, a real desire for God, a deep connection that was poisoned for you by religious leaders or family or others who use the Bible to deny you that access. They told you that if you are not this particular way or that particular way or believe a particular thing, then you don't have access to God.
Yeah. You don't need to become a different person for God to accept you at all. Not at all. You get to have all the benefits of God by just being you. You're perfectly adequate, delightful, celebrated, exactly as you are. And you don't need any gatekeepers to grant you access. you already have access.
You are just amazing. You're just so, oh gosh, oh my, you're so amazing.
So you talk to our grandbaby, and it's the same feeling. It is the same feeling.
You're amazing.
You're amazing.
You go look in the mirror and go, squeeze those little cheeks. Oh, it's so amazing. We hope that today we have helped grant you all access to show you, actually, that you already have all access.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give up anything of who you are to be one with God. Of course you have all access to God. Of course you have all access to love and belonging and wholeness. Why? It's who you are. It's who you are. Remember that, beloved. We will talk to you next week about how humanity has fallen and it can't get up.
Not.
No. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant, inclusive community for you at freedhearts.org. Please just come say hello. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for the podcast, just email us at podcast@freedhearts.org. Audio engineering is provided by Luke Johnson. The music is provided by Hannah Cottrell, our daughter, the Grammy-nominated Saint Sinner. You can find out more about her and her music at heysaintsinner.com. Please share, subscribe, and follow on your favorite platform, and support us if you can. Thanks for listening.